Hey guys, it's Ted Bogert. Welcome back to Real Estate 411. This is the real estate show that we do on the TED Show with my dear friend, a talented guru, marketing guru, coaching guru, real estate guru. I don't know, he's Mr. Hawaiian vibing to me and such a great human being. Walt Key. How you doing, Walt?
I'm doing great. I'm doing my guru pose.
Right. Look, I
Money.
sort of almost have a shirt that could go along.
Yeah, trust me, I noticed that. I'm digging the shirt for sure. That's nice.
Yeah, I'm working from home today, so for most of the day. And I thought, you know what? Why am I going to get all dressed up for camera? Let's dress down for a change, especially for you, right? Want to match the vibe. All right. Tell them a little bit about you in case they're tuning in for the first time.
Oh man, all the highlight reel really fast. 21-year Navy veteran, been in real estate for years, been coaching agents for years, done a lot of other fun stuff. I am a self-proclaimed nerd, so I'm that guy that dives super deep into data, knowing that I'm probably the only one that'll ever use it to that level. But it's good to have the background knowledge so you can speak intelligently to your clients, whether they're future clients or they're your current clients. So I'm out here just helping as many agents as possible get their business moving.
And you do an amazing job, and you have something starting this Friday. We can delve into whatever you want, whenever you want. I think it starts this Friday, right?
Yeah. So this next Friday, because this week we're in Orlando. I'm hanging out with you. We're having a great time. The epic leadership retreat. I was telling someone earlier, we were chatting about like, what do you got going on this week? I'm like, I'll be down in Orlando all week, like with my organization, just getting loved on. We're taking 600 agents and their families to Orlando in conjunction with our leadership retreat. So the leadership retreat, obviously there'll be training and speakers and, recognitions and things like that. But we're actually, we tallied it up, and between the agents and the families that are coming down, we're taking 600 people to Disney. That should be a lot of fun. And obviously it's all no cost to the agent, which is always super fun if we can do something and they don't have to pay for it. And then next Friday, 2 Fridays in a row, the 14th and the 21st, I have coaching calls that I'm doing for real estate agents, for lenders. So one of those is how to build a perpetual cycle business with for sale by owners and landlords. Great course for lenders or agents. And then the other one is how to build strategic partnerships to leverage other professional relationships to grow business together. So that'll be 14 and 21 November, both Fridays, not this Friday, but the next couple Fridays.
Awesome. Amazing. And if you haven't joined one of Walt's online classes, workshops, discussions, you're missing out. So I highly encourage you to find them all on that little link scrolling across the bottom of your screen, Linktree/Walt Key.
And then I'll be teaching our agents how to build their business at the Orlando event. So you're bringing the champagne, I'm bringing a little knowledge. We're going to have a great time just talking about building business together in person. That'll be a lot of fun.
It's going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah, I'm bringing the bubbles, but you're bringing the knowledge and the 411, which I think everybody's still hungry for. They really are looking for ways to grow and scale and figure out the market and figure out, hey, maybe I'm not doing this, but maybe I should be doing that. So,
yeah. Speaking of 411, let's talk a little bit. I'm going to have you talk a little bit. Tell us a little bit about how your press conference went. Tell us a little bit about Hometown Heroes. What's going on?
It's crazy, right? So a friend of mine is a reporter for Spectrum News 13, Keith Landry, and he said, hey, would you mind coming on talking about Hometown Heroes? And I said, sure. I think we've all forgotten about Hometown Heroes in general. This year, we were allotted $50 million, as opposed to last year, or as compared to last year, was $100 million.
Yeah.
And that $100 million went in 2 months or less. It was just gone. And this $50 million, if you can believe it, as of October 22nd, there's still $26 million left. And I think that because everybody, my assumption is, first, a lot of lenders, we talked about this, just don't know about it or have forgotten about it. Realtors too. The other thing that they added back in occupation requirements. So healthcare, education, first responders, veterans, there's certain areas of work for a Florida corporation that you have to do in order to qualify, but it is up to 5% of the purchase price or $35,000 in a 0% second mortgage that you don't have to touch or pay on until you refinance or you sell the house. So it is money there for the taking. Of course, there's qualifications, and I can fill you in on those. But the funny thing is he was a realtor also in a past life. And he's like, we just heard so much about this over the last couple of years, and now it feels like there's nothing there. So I'm on a mission to get the word out. You all should absolutely reach out to me and or Walt, and let us help you find out if you qualify for that money. It's there for the taking if you qualify.
Great program. And while they do have job requirements, it's still a pretty broad category of jobs. And a lot of people are like, oh, the first-time homebuyer thing, that is income restrictions. I probably don't qualify. The income level that you can make while still taking advantage of that program is actually pretty stout. It's pretty high. So it's not one of those things where the average person would be like, oh, I probably don't qualify because of the income. You probably do. So it's worth reaching out to Ted and just saying, hey, let's just talk about it. Give me the nitty-gritty details, because most of you, even if you think you don't, most of you probably qualify for it just based on the income and the job requirements. You probably do. You
really do, because it used to be, when it first rolled out, it was nurses. It was very specific, even within the broad category.
Right.
And now they've expanded it, like in education, it's people who work in the office at schools, people who work in the offices that are part of the education department. Same for the healthcare. You can be the greeter at the hospital and you work in healthcare. There are lots of categories. It's very broad. And so I'm with Walt. I don't want you to think you can't. There's no risk in you reaching out and saying, hey, Ted, here's my scenario, especially now where the money is still there. So
it's not going to last forever. Take advantage of it while you can.
It really will. So thanks for bringing that up. All right. Tell us about the Fed rate. What's up?
Oh, my goodness. So for those who were tracking, you probably saw the headlines, right? The bullet points of, oh, the Fed cut the rates. And you probably went, haven't the rates gone up this week? Right? If you go back, I'm not making this stuff up. If you go back and watch the prior calls that Ted and I have done, we told you that would happen, because the Fed rate cuts get kind of baked in advance. So we knew that was coming. What we were really looking for this time, 29 October, Fed cut the rates, and throughout the last week, rates came up. What we were really looking for, again, going into the nerd stuff, was not what was the rate cut going to be. We knew exactly what it was going to be going in. The conversation was, what are they saying specifically about the state of the market?
Right.
Future plans, like where do they see everything at? Because longer term, that starts to give us the indications on, are they cutting it again? What are they going to cut? How long will it take, et cetera? So two of the things that were really interesting about the press conference, I watched the whole thing because I'm nerd 101. I can't help myself. One was, he said that the December rate cut was not a foregone conclusion. Now, up until that press conference, there was about a 85-90% probability that December they were going to cut the rates again. The odds were being calculated as if it was pretty much a foregone conclusion. And so when he came out and said, a December rate cut's not a foregone conclusion, we're still looking at the market dynamics and seeing what happens, and we're weighing inflation versus jobs, right? You could ignore all the other super nerdy stuff that he talked about the jobs and how they calculate it and what information they're using and when the government shut down and all this stuff. But the punchline was, it is not definitively concrete that we're cutting rates in December.
Right.
The other thing that they said, which probably went over a lot of people's head, and that's okay, is they announced the end of their quantitative tightening. That was kind of significant. And for those who don't know, I won't get super like PhD level stupid nerdy on you guys, just high level. Quantitative tightening is when the Fed shrinks their balance sheets, or at least stops expanding their balance sheets. They let the bonds and the mortgage-backed securities kind of run off the balance sheet. And that tends to remove some liquidity. It changes the yields over a longer period of time. Now, that's not to say that they're going to start quantitative easing. That's not it at all. We've been in a quantitative tightening phase for a while now. Right. And they simply said, we're at a point where we're going to stop doing that and just kind of let our balance sheet flush itself out a bit. What will ultimately happen is some of their longer term maturities that are on the balance sheet will start to run off the balance sheet. And what they'll do is when they cash those in, they'll start putting that into shorter term maturities because it changes their reserve positions and things like that. You got to understand, we're talking about trillions with a T, trillions of dollars on the Fed's balance sheet. So when they say we're going to stop doing something or we're going to start doing, we're going to let the balance sheet run off a little bit. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but we're talking about massive money movements, and the market investors respond to that. So what does that all mean? That means that as we push into the future, so they said they're going to stop effective December 2025. So right around the corner. That will have some bearing on 2026 and beyond as the balance sheet shifts. So we'll come back to that in a minute, but I want to also just mention before I dive deeper into the details, we talked maybe last week, maybe the week before, about the yield spread between the treasury yield and the mortgage rates. With the mortgage rates coming up after the announcement on the 29th, that yield spread has actually gotten even wider. We are currently sitting at about a 2.28% yield spread from mortgage rates and the 10-year treasury. Historically, right, it fluctuates. Historically, that yield spread's been between about 1.5% and 2% in any given time frame. In times of really tight economic stress, the yield spread gets a little higher, right? So we're a little bit higher than average now, but we could argue we've had some economic stress the last couple of years. But traditionally, we've seen 1.5% to 2%. Really, we've seen the bulk of that 1.5% to 2% has honestly been between 1.5% and about 1.8%. So we are 2.28. We're a fair bit higher than that yield spread. All that means is if we compared apples to apples from the historic yield spread and the current treasury yields, interest rates should already be lower even without additional rate cuts. As the market takes that breath, the economic uncertainty starts to level out. We go, okay, we don't need this high of a yield spread, and mortgage rates theoretically will come back into equilibrium into that 1.5% to 2% range anyway. So there's some margin of error in there. Now, let's go back to quantitative tightening for a second and just what does that mean that they're going to stop it? What is, like, who cares? Like, what does it actually start to do? The end of quantitative tightening could usher in some lower mortgage rates throughout 2026 and beyond as those balance sheets starts to move, even without future rate cuts, because of the way the treasury yields respond, as in the Fed is putting more money into or out of treasuries. That affects the yields. Because again, we're talking trillions of dollars. If you and I were to go buy some treasury bonds, we're not affecting the yield.
Correct.
We're just buying whatever the investors say it is, right?
Correct.
And we're hoping it does good for us. When the Fed moves hundreds of billions of dollars or trillions of dollars, that makes movement. And so those yields might shift in 2026 and cause lower mortgage rates, again, even without future rate cuts. Now, I say even without future rate cuts, but even after the Fed announcement where they said, you know, December's not a foregone conclusion, we may or may not cut rates, we'll wait and see. The probability of a December 25 basis point rate cut right now is still 65%. And we've got a long time. Right? 37 days doesn't feel long when you're just day to day. But in terms of Fed, economic data, jobs market, inflation, all of the nuance, 37 days is a long time. And so they don't meet again until 10 December.
Wow.
Anything could happen between now and 10 December.
It's true.
So while a rate cut's not a foregone conclusion, it's also not a foregone conclusion that they don't cut rates again.
Correct.
And again, even without that, we'll probably see some drift lower just based on everything else that's going on. Now, one of the other pieces, and we'll dive into the government shutdown in a second, one of the other things that the Fed had mentioned was we're kind of operating in a black hole. He didn't use that term, but he basically said one of the reasons we're looking at maybe we don't cut rates in December is we are currently in a void of data because the government shut down.
Right.
And a lot of those reports are federal level reports, and those are not being produced. So the verbiage that he used, and it makes sense, he said, when you're driving in the fog, you slow down.
Right.
Right. When you're operating in an unknown, you take less action.
That's right.
Perfectly reasonable.
I agree.
So as of today, we are at 33 and a half days. We're on day 34 of a government shutdown.
But you have a crystal ball. Tell me about your crystal ball.
I do. So we'll get this so funny. So tomorrow we'll be tied 35 days. We'll be tied for the longest shutdown on record. Now, some of you probably don't feel the government shutdown. Like ain't hurting me none, right? A lot of federal workers are either working without pay or they're furloughed. They're figuring out how they got to pay their bills. National flood insurance program is shut down. They can't issue any new policies. That's a big deal in Florida, Louisiana, Texas, other flood-prone states. Now, the nice thing about NIPIF is the current policies that are remaining active can be transferred with a 30-day grace period. So we're not seeing a big problem with closings associated with flood insurance, thankfully. And we'll probably be back open, and we'll talk about it in a second, well before that 30-day grace period becomes an issue for most people. What else is being affected, though, for rural areas, USDA is essentially shut down.
Yep.
So USDA loans meant for rural development areas, those loans are not being processed. So if you were in a rural market looking to buy a house, and you were going to use USDA, which for those who don't know USDA, it's a 100% loan program. There's pros and cons in terms of the overall fees and costs of the program, but it's a good program in a rural area, 100% financing. That's not an option on the table right now.
Right.
Until the government opens back up. So the good thing is I have shaken my crystal ball, and Walt Key's personal opinion is that the government will be open before this week is over.
Why is that?
Now, why do I say that? Well, I'm going to get a little political here, but it's just the facts. On day 35, which is tomorrow, every single politician in America is going to be able to point their finger across the aisle and say, see what they just did? They just got the longest shutdown in history. So we'll technically eclipse the longest shutdown in history on Wednesday, because tomorrow we'll tie the longest shutdown. And then by Wednesday, everyone has a talking point for next election. See what they did? They shut down the government. It doesn't matter who you vote for. It doesn't matter they'll both point their fingers at each other and say, longest government shutdown in history. Once they've achieved that talking point, they've got the political clout they want going into next year. They won't care as much about opening the government and negotiating with each other. I hate to say it, but it's all political gamesmanship to a degree.
Yep.
So the other thing is tomorrow, the elections on the state level are over. There's about 9 different states, right? VA, Jersey, California, New York, Pennsylvania, Texas, Georgia, I think Washington. They have elections tomorrow. So the argument is once those elections are over, everyone can take a collective breath because they're not fighting an election battle, and let's go open the government. The other thing is SNAP funding is gone, right? And that's the conversation about, do we let the ACA subsidies expire or not? That was a big contention point of why we haven't opened it yet. That's kind of become a stalemate. Like one side wants it, one side doesn't. They're not making any progress. But this SNAP funding seems to be a bigger political pain point for both parties.
Right.
And that, I believe, is going to be the crux that gets people back to the table and say, okay, we, regardless of what party you're in, we can't afford the political damage of either party saying that we took away people's right to eat.
Correct.
Right. That's essentially what's happening with SNAP funding. So I don't believe that will go on very long at all. And then lastly, the reason I think it'll be, I was talking last week to someone, I said it'll be this week or next week. The reason I really think it'll be before the end of this week. Next week is a non-legislative week. They call that a state week. So 10 to 14 November, all of next week, they're not in session. They're back in their home states, talking to their constituents, doing town halls, right, beating the streets, trying to drum up election points. So if they don't do it this week, they won't do it next week. And by the time they come back on Monday, the 16th, SNAP will have been out for weeks. Even if they used contingency funds, there's a conversation right now about legally can they or should they or whatever. Even if they do, they'll be expired by then. Like, it will be very, very painful for millions of people. but it will be very, very painful for the politicians that did not fix that problem. So I really do. I really believe that by the end of this week, we will either be back open or we'll be on the cusp of some major movement to get back open. So for those who are affected by this, hang in there a little bit longer. I know that's not comforting to say hang in there while you're trying to figure out how you get paid, but I don't see this political BS lasting much longer.
Thank God, because it's
for sure.
Rough. I know a lot of people who have been impacted. It's very, very rough right now. So yes, I hope Walt's crystal ball is absolutely accurate. So we'll know more toward the end of the week.
It's got a 98.75% accuracy rate. I just made that up just now on the fly, but it sounds good.
I love it. Listen, statistics. Why not? Pull it from somewhere.
Nothing's perfect.
All right. Any last words of wisdom you want to share with them before we head out for this week? Because that was a lot.
We talked about it last week. Don't enjoy your vacation time. I hope everyone had a great Halloween. I hope everybody's planning for a really nice Thanksgiving. All that fun stuff. But do not sit idle for the next 60 days and wait for 2026 to show up. Guess what? We all have a calendar. It ain't going to come at you by surprise. 26 is coming.
That's right.
Do what you need to do right now to put your business plan together, to start talking to your past clients, your current clients. Start doing things to move your business forward right now when the vast majority of people are kicking their feet up. Get yourself that head start moving into 2026. You're going to be in a really good position.
Agreed. Listen, I know you all like to start taking off around October 1st. It used to be Thanksgiving, but boy, it keeps moving. Soon it's going to be Labor Day. I need you all to be focused. I think it is super important now, because there's still a lot of people who won't listen to this or don't listen to that thought process. So if you do and you take action, you're going to be so far ahead of the game. And so just like Walt said, it's just super important. This is a great time for you to reconnect and build and plan and have an action so that you can hit the ground running January 2026.
100%.
All right, my friend, you can find Walt Key you can Google Walt Key, Walter Key. You can look him up on Linktree/Walt Key. And you can always find him on social media anywhere and everywhere. And I'm looking forward to seeing you this week, my friend. It's going to be awesome.
A fun time.
And we'll be back next week, y'all. If you have questions, you have marketing, you want to learn more about what coaching Walt's doing, what workshops he has on the 14th and 21st, please reach out to him or reach out to me and I'll get you to him, because those can be very impactful. I know they are for your 2026 for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Have a great one. My friend, we'll see you soon.